at Notre Dame, now taking over at LSU to replace Ed Orgeron. Kelly texting his team during the wee hours of the morning saying, in part, "Let me apologize for the late-night text and, more importantly, for not being able to share the news with you in person that I will be leaving Notre Dame. I'm flying back to South Bend tonight to be able to meet with you in the morning. But the news broke late today, and I'm sorry you found out through social media or news reports." Meanwhile, it was just over a week ago that Kelly denied interest in other coaching jobs. We start with you. Your school's got its man. What do you think?
I like it. I like it, G. I 100% honest with you because I think it's some substance there. Brian Kelly is a successful coach. And I get it. Like during this coaching cycle, we want the right name and we want to get excited about the name. But when you look at his resume and the things that he was able to do at Notre Dame, and I would conventionally think that he would be able to get better players at LSU. That's always the question. Can you recruit? It's a different animal down there in the South, and you'll hear this 1,000 times. Does he fit culturally? Well, I'll tell you what the hell fits culturally when you win football games. You fit immediately. There was a guy by the name of Nick Saban that came from Michigan State that no one knew. He started winning. Coincidentally, he started fitting in to it down there in LSU. So here's the thing, man. Brian Kelly is not the splash hire from this context. It's not the name that everybody thought, right? If you get Lincoln Riley, LSU fans would have threw a damn parade. We like parades in Louisiana. They would have threw a parade. They would have went crazy in the streets. They a little bit, what is this for LSU? I'll tell you what it is. It's a coach that consistently wins, and hopefully the boost of the type of players and being in the SEC that he'll have will finally get him over the hump. He's 60 years old. He's experienced the college football playoff. There was absolutely no reason to leave Notre Dame unless you felt like you could go to LSU and win, finish the job and win a national championship. And I believe that had a lot to do with it, not to mention that $100 million.
Okay, a good throw in at the end there, and $100 million. Okay, so Heather, now I come to you with what is left behind. Notre Dame, and you are there today covering the selection committee and all the actions that they will be taking. They are very much still a piece of this mix. How, if at all, does his departure impact their chances of getting into the playoff?
Greeny, my understanding is not at all, because the selection committee, and you hear Gary Barta, the committee chair, say this repeatedly on Tuesday nights, they do not project, meaning they're not going to look ahead at what a Notre Dame team would look like without Brian Kelly in a semifinal. It's the very same way that they treat teams that might be missing their starting quarterback or somebody else. Remember in 2014, in the Big Ten championship game, they were without JT Barrett and had to turn to Cardale Jones. The selection committee the week before, upon learning that Barrett was injured against Michigan, they didn't penalize Ohio State. They bumped them up one spot because they evaluate them to that point. So they look at Notre Dame as 11-1 team, and that's got to stack up against the other contenders.
Now, there is still a very realistic scenario in which they wind up getting in. So, Paul, as the voice of college football, I'll give you the floor in any direction you want to go. This is madness. What is your takeaway?
Well, my first takeaway is a successful coach is leaving Notre Dame. Somewhere I sense that Newt Rockne is rolling over in his grave saying he's going to LSU from South Bend. That is so extraordinary. But it shows you how attractive LSU is to anyone. What's attractive there is you win national championships. And I'm sure Brian Kelly is looking at the stat book and going, you know what? Okay, Nick Saban won there. We get that. But so did Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. And I think Kelly is saying to himself, if Ed Orgeron can win a national championship down there, I'm going there. And the $100 million will fit my pocketbook quite well. But ultimately, they are getting a great coach. He can recruit in the South. He's gotten players out of Louisiana. He knows what the SEC is all about. He plays Alabama. He's seen Georgia home and home. And I think it may not be the sexiest hire like Lincoln Riley to USC, but it is a smart hire, and I think he will be successful there.
All right, and of course, you also pointed out very interestingly that a very successful coach choosing to leave Notre Dame for another college job, something that generations ago would have seemed impossible. Heather, who are the usual suspects? Who are we looking at now to succeed Brian Kelly in South Bend?
Greeny, I think it has to start with Luke Fickell, Cincinnati's coach, and crickets from Fickell last night. But, I think that's got to be their top target. And recruiting-wise, it makes perfect sense. He would inherit a program that's a playoff contender and ready to roll. I think that has to be the top candidate. But you also look at guys like Matt Campbell, maybe a Mark Stoops. I don't know. Plenty of good opportunities out there, but I think Fickell has to be at the top of the list.
Very quickly, Paul, those of us who root for chaos, and I am one of them, what would you give to see Luke Fickell coach against Cincinnati in the playoff? I mean, there is a scenario here where that happens. Luke Fickell leads Cincinnati to the playoff and then coaches against them with Notre Dame. I'm signing up for that right now. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, I would too, but I think that's the trickiest part of this. And I think Luke Fickell is someone who would have a hard time even going to Notre Dame, walking away from a program that he has brought to this precipice. So the committee may not care about these things, but we do, and that is a delicious probability, Greeny. I'm glad you brought that up so early in the morning.
Delicious.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.